All right, earlier we were talking about the hearing that occurred in the House of Representatives with the Homeland Security Secretary yesterday. And our next guest actually questioned the Secretary on the Biden administration's decision to rescind several Trump administration policies. Joining us now is Texas Congressman Mike McCaul. Congressman, welcome back.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Yesterday, you asked the Secretary at this hearing to reconsider some policies that the Trump administration had put in place. You know, when it comes to your state, which is clearly a border state, and frankly, the rest of our country, how harmful is the rollback of a lot of these policies under the Biden administration?
Well, it took place with the stroke of a pen on Inauguration Day. On day one, he rescinded what I consider a very historic agreement that the Trump administration achieved in these political asylum security agreements with Mexico and Central America. And with the stroke of a pen, President Biden absolutely shredded those agreements. That's when you saw the surge. I mean, there is a direct cause and effect, Sean. I've seen this movie before. You know, as a federal prosecutor down in Texas with the border, I was chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. You know, every time you give them the wrong message, like when the secretary says, we're not saying don't come, just don't come right now.
Right.
My God.
But
that's like the worst message.
Exactly. Well, speaking of that, just within the last couple hours, the House of Representatives voted to give a pathway to citizenship for the so-called Dreamers, right? What message does that send, Congressman?
It's a welcome mat. Come on in. We're ready for business. And that's a message that when I questioned the secretary, and he knows better. He's a federal prosecutor in a border state. It was so irresponsible to send that kind of message. Deterrence is important here. You know, in the Trump administration, there was deterrence. We didn't have this problem. But within 2 months, they've absolutely reversed this policy. You know, I talked to Kirstjen Nielsen that she negotiated a lot of these agreements with Mexico and Central America, and it was working.
Yeah.
They were applying for political asylum in Mexico, not in the United States. Now we've seen this policy reverse. We have catch and release back again. And once they're released, as you know, they're given a notice to appear, and then they disappear.
Yeah, bye-bye. I want to switch gears for a second. You have been a leader in the House of Representatives holding China accountable. And there was a story yesterday that a California-based tech company, it's called Seagate Technologies, it's being investigated for selling hard drives to Huawei while they're still on the U.S. blacklist of companies that are restricted from purchasing U.S. microchips or equipment containing microchips. As a leader in this effort and someone, as you pointed out, who chaired the Homeland Security Committee, how concerning is something like this to you?
Well, I chair the China Task Force. I'm the lead Republican on Foreign Affairs Committee. Very concerning. I mean, look, Huawei is nothing less than a telecom surveillance program. When they plant Huawei in countries in their Belt and Road Initiative, and that would be Africa and Latin America and, you know, God forbid, right next door, it's a telecom surveillance program, and they suck all the data up. And we tell these countries that this is not in your best national security interest. So that's how we got the Brits to reject Huawei. We can't afford our Five Eyes to have Huawei and jeopardize our national security. It's a real threat to the United States.
Yeah, it's amazing how they run around offering this free technology, they being China. Everybody says, well, I'll take the deal, and they have no idea the full consequences that has for them. But you and several of your colleagues are reintroducing a bill that you guys had promoting U.S. international leadership in 5G Act. What do people need to know about the threat to the U.S. when it comes to China's interest in 5G?
Well, look, again, their Huawei 5G program is a telecom surveillance program. I think overall, the question is the 100-year marathon that China has. Their goal, and it's very clear, and they're very open about it, is to have total economic and military global domination by the 100-year marathon, which is coming up not in a decade from now. And they're actually making a lot of progress, Sean. I think it wasn't until COVID that our eyes were woken up that they controlled our medical supplies. They control our rare earth minerals. You know, these advanced semiconductor chips were beholden to China in some respects. That's why I introduced the Chips for America Act to get us off of this really, I think, bad policy of and get our businesses to manufacture jobs here in the United States and protect our national security, at the same time.
Amen to that. I mean, we've got to. I mean, it's amazing. They caused a virus, and now they're supplying us with the pharmaceuticals, the PPE that respond to what they caused in the first place. Do you think, as the administration has shifted to the Biden administration, that these guys are being as tough on China as Trump was, or is there a noticeable shift?
Well, what I worry about is they're going to make concessions. Blinken, we asked him, he says he's not going to make concessions. They're over there negotiating cyber attacks, intellectual property theft, Taiwan, Hong Kong, the genocide with the Uyghur Muslims. And they say we want to avoid armed conflict. We want stiff competition. The thing I worry about, Sean, keep your radar on this one, is that John Kerry is also on the 7th floor of the State Department, and he may override Secretary Blinken on some decisions when it comes to climate change. And what I fear the most is that they're going to start making concessions and go soft on China. President Trump, first president of my lifetime to stand up to the Chinese Communist Party, and I worry that they're going to make concessions based on climate change.
Oh, yeah. Congressman, before I let you go, there's a lot of parents out there whose kids are on apps like TikTok. You've talked a lot about the Chinese efforts to collect data and technology. How concerned should Americans and American parents be about the apps that their kids are playing on, or they themselves might be engaging in, for example, in some of these genealogy apps?
Well, so, the doctors that were reporting a SARS-like virus were picked up on WeChat. They're under complete surveillance. They were trying to sound the alarm about the COVID-19 and the pandemic, and they were silenced and arrested by their own country. And I can go on more about that, but with respect to our children, TikTok, again, everything they put on TikTok is subject to gathering by the Chinese Communist Party. So it is subject to being sucked up, that data, within the Chinese Communist network, if they want to have access to it. So, a big awakening. The other thing that worries me a lot is that some of these genetic companies that the United States partners with Chinese Communist Party companies, that actually is even more frightening, the fact that they could get some American genetic material in China and be able to exploit that in China. I think that's long-term another threat that I see.
Yeah. All right, Congressman, thank you for joining us, but also for your efforts to hold China accountable and to sound the alarm. It's so important. I appreciate you being here again.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, well, coming up, we're going to talk to Congresswoman Lauren Boebert about Democrats' plan to push even more legislation through Congress without any Republican support. I guess that's not much unity, right? Stay tuned.